21. Beautiful black actresses who hid their diseases until death. What if I told you some of the most celebrated black women in Hollywood weren't just acting on screen, they were also acting off it, hiding life-threatening illnesses while the world applauded their smiles? Tonight, we reveal the silent fights behind 21 legendary stars who carried cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and deep suffering in secret, until death exposed what fame could not. These aren't tabloid stories, these are truths that will change how you remember their greatness. If you're ready to see the side of Hollywood they never wanted you to know, stay with us. And subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence right now because their stories deserve to be heard. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge stood at the edge of history, dazzling in a Hollywood that rarely made room for women who looked like her. In 1954, her performance in Carmen Jones earned her a Best Actress Oscar nomination, the first ever for a black woman. To the public, she seemed untouchable, a beauty, a singer-actress who could command any frame and a symbol of possibility for generations watching from the margins. But fame did not shield her from the loneliness that still waited off-set. Behind closed doors, Dorothy carried wounds she kept hidden. Friends later spoke of deep depression, crushing pressure, and the slow erosion of hope in an industry that praised her talent while narrowing her path. On September 8, 1965, she was found dead in her apartment. The detail that haunts this story is small and devastating. A telephone bill on the floor covered with frantic numbers and late-night calls to friends, family, and hotlines. Quiet proof of a struggle no camera caught. Dorothy's life fits the title with painful clarity. She did not die only from what the public could name. She died with a private battle still locked inside her. She was a pioneer who opened doors and a woman who needed help she could not ask for loudly enough. Remembering Dorothy Dandridge means celebrating her artistry and legacy while also hearing the warning in her silence. Even the brightest stars can be fading within, and they deserve to be met with care before the final curtain falls. Diahann Carroll. Diahann Carroll was the kind of star who made elegance look effortless. Long before diversity became a Hollywood buzzword, she was already rewriting the rules, gliding from Broadway to film to television with a grace that forced America to look again. She won a Tony, became the first black woman to take home a Golden Globe for TV acting, and in 1968, stepped into history as the lead of Julia, portraying a black woman as a poised, professional widowed nurse. Yet behind the polished Carroll was quietly fighting a battle she didn't want the world to see. According to those close to her, she lived with breast cancer for years, choosing privacy over public sympathy. She kept her treatments out of sight, confiding in only a trusted friend who safeguarded her medical records. Even as illness pressed in, she protected the image she had spent a lifetime building, strong, composed, unbreakable, continuing to appear radiant, never letting pain steal the spotlight. On October 4, 2019, Diahann Carroll passed away at 84, found at home in her favorite chair, the television still glowing nearby. Only after her death did many fans learn what she had endured in silence. Her story sits at the heart of our title because it reveals a truth older audiences know well. For many black women of her era, strength was not a slogan, it was survival. Carroll gave America unforgettable performances, but her final role was private courage carried with dignity to the very end until her last quiet breath. Cicely Tyson. Cicely Tyson didn't just act, she embodied truth. From the moment she stepped into the public eye, she carried a kind of quiet fire that made every role feel like a testimony. She refused to play caricatures and demanded dignity for black women on screen, turning performances in Sounder 1972 and the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman 1974 into cultural milestones. To audiences, she was elegance and steel, wrapped together, a woman who seemed to grow stronger with every decade, standing as proof that greatness could be both humble and unshakable. But behind that legendary poise, Tyson was reportedly fighting a private war she never allowed to define her. Loved ones later shared that she had battled breast cancer in silence, keeping her illness away from headlines and interviews. Even as her health declined, she continued working, choosing purpose over pity. She protected her privacy the way she protected her craft, with discipline, pride, and a deep belief that her life story belonged to her, not the public. The world saw a tireless artist. Few knew what her body was enduring off camera. On January 28, 2021, Cicely Tyson passed away at 96, peacefully at home. The timing felt almost poetic, just days after she released her memoir and after receiving final honors celebrating her life's work. Only in her passing did the full weight of her hidden struggle become widely known. Her story fits our title because it reminds us that some of the most powerful women carry their pain quietly, not to be dramatic, but to stay free. Tyson left behind more than films. She left a blueprint of strength and a gentle warning not to mistake silence for absence of suffering. Ruby Dee. Ruby Dee was brilliance with a backbone. Long before Hollywood learned to say representation, she was already living it on stage, on screen, and in the streets. From A Raisin in the Sun to later film work, her performances carried a rare mix of warmth and authority, as if every line came from lived experience. To many Americans, especially black audiences who grew up watching her, Ruby wasn't just an actress. She was a moral compass in a world that often tried to dim voices like hers. Beside her husband, Ossie Davis, she became a symbol of artistic excellence tied to fearless activism. Yet even the strongest symbols are still human. In her final years, Ruby was quietly battling breast cancer, a fight she chose to keep private. Family members later said she didn't want the public to see her as fragile or distracted by illness. She continued forward with the same steady dignity that defined her career. No dramatic announcements, no invitations for sympathy, only the work and the love she gave to those closest to her. It wasn't denial. It was a deliberate choice to protect her legacy and her peace. On June 11, 2014, Ruby Dee passed away at 91 shortly after completing treatment. Those who found her described a calm stillness in the room, as if she had simply slipped from this life the way she lived it, quietly, brave eyes fixed on what mattered most. Only after her death did many fans learn how long she had been carrying that burden. Ruby's story fits the title because it shows the hidden cost of always having to be strong. She gave the world light, but saved her hardest fight for the shadows until the curtain finally fell. Juanita Moore. Juanita Moore carried a kind of grace that felt like it belonged to another era, soft-spoken on the surface, yet unbreakable underneath. When she appeared in Imitation of Life, 1959, she didn't just play a role, she delivered a performance that made audiences feel the weight of black womanhood in America. Her face held tenderness and sorrow in the same breath, and for many viewers, she became unforgettable, not because of flashy fame, but because she felt real. In an industry that often pushed black actresses to the margins, Juanita stood out through sheer emotional truth. But behind that steady, dignified image was a struggle she chose to keep entirely her own. According to those close to her, Moore had been battling cancer for years, hiding it from the public and even from parts of her social circle. She feared that revealing illness might change how people saw her, or worse, how she would be remembered. So she moved quietly through her treatments, slipping into medical visits at odd hours, keeping her pain out of the spotlight. When the aches became too heavy, she relied on painkillers, still determined to look composed whenever the world was watching. In 2001, Juanita Moore passed away at 87, and the news stunned many because so few had known she was sick at all. Only afterward did the full picture emerge: a woman who had carried her suffering in silence, protecting her privacy the way she protected her pride. Her story fits our title because it reveals a heartbreaking pattern: how black actresses of her generation often felt they had to endure quietly to remain strong, no matter the cost. Juanita's legacy is both beauty and warning. The brightest smiles can sometimes be the ones hiding the deepest pain. Nichelle Nichols. Nichelle Nichols was a woman who didn't just step onto television, she stepped into history. When she appeared as Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, millions saw something they had never seen before: a black woman on the bridge of the future, calm, intelligent, essential. Her presence quietly shattered limits in American living rooms, and her voice carried far beyond sci-fi. Off-screen, she became a trailblazer in real life, too, supporting NASA's efforts to recruit astronauts of color and proving that representation wasn't a trend, it was a mission. Yet behind that fearless public image, Nichols was said to be fighting a private battle that few truly understood. According to accounts shared after her passing, she had lived with serious heart disease for years, enduring the slow, exhausting weight of it without making it the headline of her story. She protected her family from worry, her fans from pity, and herself from being reduced to a diagnosis. Even when her strength wavered, she kept moving forward with the same quiet resolve that made Uhura unforgettable. On July 30th, 2022, Nichelle Nichols passed away at 89, reportedly discovered at home by her son after a long, hidden struggle. Only in the wake of her death did many fans realize how much she had been carrying in silence. Her story belongs in our title because it shows how greatness often comes with unseen costs, especially for black women who spent their lives being the first, the strong one, the example. Nichols gave the world a vision of tomorrow, but she faced her hardest fight away from the cameras, holding on to dignity until her final breath. Lena Horne. Lena Horne was glamour with a purpose. Long before Hollywood learned to make space for black women, she walked onto stages and screens with a presence so magnetic it challenged the room to widen. In films like Stormy Weather and on nightclub stages across America, Lena wasn't merely a singer or actress, she was a statement. Every note, every camera close-up carried the calm defiance of a woman determined to be seen as elegant, complex, and fully human in an era that tried to flatten black talent into stereotypes. But behind that polished brilliance, Horne was living with a private suffering she refused to let the public narrate. Family and close friends later shared that Lena had quietly battled breast cancer, a disease she kept far from interviews and headlines. She chose silence not because she lacked support, but because she guarded her dignity fiercely. In her later years, she reportedly relied on pain medication to get through mornings, then stepped back into the world poised and radiant, as if strength were simply part of her wardrobe. On May 9, 2010, Lena Horne passed away at 92 peacefully at home. Only afterward did many fans learn how long she had been carrying that hidden weight. Her story fits the heart of our title because it reveals a truth her generation knew too well. Black women in the spotlight were often expected to be invincible, to suffer quietly, and to keep performing no matter what their bodies were fighting. Lena gave America timeless beauty and sound, but her final act was deeply personal, protecting her legacy by refusing to let illness become the loudest chapter of her life. Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was never just a writer, she was a living lighthouse. To millions, her voice felt like a hand on the shoulder and a push forward at the same time. From I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings to the poems she recited for presidents, Maya carried the history of black survival and black joy in every sentence. She had a way of speaking that made people lean in part wisdom, part music, part unshakable truth. By the time she became America's beloved elder, she had already lived many lives: dancer, singer, activist, teacher, and above all, a storyteller who turned pain into power. Yet behind that towering public strength, Angelou was quietly battling serious illness for years. Those close to her later revealed that she had been living with cancer, a fight she chose not to share publicly. She didn't want the world to reduce her to a diagnosis or to shift attention away from her work. Instead, she continued writing, mentoring, and appearing when she could, keeping her suffering private. For Maya, silence wasn't weakness, it was control. She had spent a lifetime reclaiming her narrative, and even in illness, she protected it. On May 28, 2014, Maya Angelou passed away at 86 in her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Only after her death did many admirers understand how long she had been carrying that hidden burden. Her story belongs in 21 beautiful black actresses who hid their diseases until death, because it shows the same quiet discipline seen in so many women of her generation: endure privately, give generously, and let the legacy speak louder than the struggle. Maya left us with words that still breathe, and with a final lesson: courage can be loud, but sometimes it is most profound in silence. Tamara Dobson. Tamara Dobson burst onto the screen like a force of nature. Tall, striking, and fearless, she became a symbol of black beauty and power in the 1970s, best known as the star of Cleopatra Jones. In a time when action heroes were almost never black women, Tamara carried herself like she'd been born to shatter that rule. Audiences didn't just admire her style, they felt the confidence she projected, the kind that told every viewer, we belong at the center of the story too. But beneath that commanding image was a quiet struggle. She never turned into spectacle. According to accounts shared after her passing, Dobson endured multiple sclerosis and pneumonia for years, slipping away for treatments at odd hours and returning to the world with the same radiant smile. She kept her illness out of the headlines, protecting her privacy and her legacy in an industry that can be cruel to any sign of weakness. To the public, she remained the unstoppable Cleopatra, strong, graceful, and larger than life, even as her body was fighting battles few could imagine. In October 2006, Tamara Dobson died at 59, and only then did many fans learn what she had been facing in silence. Her story fits the heart of our title because it reflects a pattern seen in so many pioneering black actresses. They carried the weight of representation while carrying their pain alone. Tamara gave the world an image of fearless black womanhood, yet her greatest fight happened off camera in private, proof that even the boldest icons can be quietly suffering and still choose dignity until the final curtain falls. Roxy Roker. Roxy Roker carried history in her smile. To millions of Americans in the 1970s, she was best known as Helen Willis on The Jeffersons, a role that mattered far beyond sitcom laughs. As one half of television's first regularly shown interracial couple, Roxy helped normalize love across color lines at a time when many households still resisted the idea. She was poised, intelligent, and quietly radiant, holding her ground on screen with a warmth that made her instantly trusted. Without speeches or slogans, she expanded what black womanhood could look like on national TV. Off camera, though Roxy was living with a private storm. After her death, friends and loved ones revealed she had been quietly battling breast cancer for years. She chose not to publicize it, continuing her work and public appearances with the same grace audiences adored. She reportedly avoided letting illness become her identity, shielding others from worry, and shielding herself from the pity that so often follows a diagnosis. In an industry where roles could vanish the moment strength appears to fade, her silence was also a kind of protection of her career, her family, and the dignity she had earned. On the morning of December 2nd, 1995, Roxy Roker passed away at just 66, found peacefully at home. Only then did many fans learn the depth of what she had endured. Her story belongs in 21 beautiful black actresses who hid their diseases until death, because it exposes the cost of always being the strong one. Roxy gave America quiet progress wrapped in charm, and she carried her final battle the same way she lived, steadfast, private, and brave until the very end. Esther Rolle. Esther Rolle was the heartbeat of Good Times, a woman whose presence felt like home to millions. On screen, she carried the strength of a matriarch who could hold a family together with nothing but faith, hard work, and love. Her voice was steady, her gaze unflinching, and her warmth made America see the dignity of black mothers in a way television rarely allowed before. Esther didn't just play Florida Evans, she made her a mirror for real life, turning everyday struggle into something noble. But behind that powerful image, Rollie was quietly fighting a battle she chose not to share. According to what was revealed after her passing, she had lived for years with diabetes, managing the illness privately while continuing to work and inspire. She kept her pain out of public view, not wanting her legacy to be reshaped by sickness or sympathy. Like many women of her generation, especially Black women who were expected to be unbreakably strong, Esther carried her condition with discipline and silence, letting her work speak louder than her suffering. On November 17, 1998, Esther Rolle was found peacefully in her favorite chair, an unfinished book resting across her lap. Only then did loved ones discover the small vial of pills she had relied on, quiet evidence of the illness she had been managing alone. Her story fits our title because it shows how even the most steadfast figures can be fighting unseen wars. Esther gave the world laughter, courage, and a blueprint of resilience, yet she guarded her own struggle to the very end, leaving us with a tender reminder: strength is sometimes what people see and sometimes what they never do. Zara Cully. Zara Cully was the kind of actress who could steal a scene with a single look. To many Americans, she will always be remembered as Mother Jefferson on The Jeffersons, sharp-tongued, funny, and fiercely loving in the way only a real matriarch can be. In the 1970s, when Black women were still fighting for space on mainstream television, Zara brought a rare mix of authority and humor that felt instantly familiar to audiences. She wasn't there to decorate the story. She was the story's backbone, a reminder of the older generation that survived, sacrificed, and still knew how to laugh. Yet away from the studio lights, Zara was living with a secret that slowly took her strength. As the transcript describes, she chose to retreat from public view in her final months, confiding only in a small circle of family and trusted friends. After her death, the truth emerged: she had been quietly battling lung cancer. She didn't want headlines about her illness, didn't want pity to become the last thing people associated with her name. So she carried the weight privately with the same dignity she brought to every role, shielding her pain so the world could continue to remember her power. Zara Cully passed away on February 28, 1978, far from the noise of fame in a quiet Los Angeles room. The story notes a fragile letter found near her vanity, her own trembling farewell revealing what she had hidden. Her life fits the title because it shows how many pioneering Black actresses felt they had to remain strong even in suffering. Zara gave audiences joy and truth, but her greatest fight was the one no one saw: a final act of pride and grace that deserves to be remembered alongside her laughter. Isabel Sanford. Isabel Sanford was the steady heart of the Jeffersons, the woman America forever knew as Weezy. Week after week, she brought warmth, wit, and quiet authority to primetime television, helping a groundbreaking Black sitcom feel like family in living rooms across the country. Her Louise Jefferson wasn't loud for attention. She was the anchor, the voice of reason, the kind of wife and mother who could hold a household together with one look and a perfectly timed line. When she became the first Black woman to win an Emmy for lead actress in a comedy, it wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a door opening for countless women who would follow. But away from the laughter, Isabel was living with health struggles she chose not to make public. In her final years, she dealt with serious heart-related issues and declining strength, yet she kept those battles private. Like so many Black actresses of her generation, she understood how quickly the industry and the public could shift from admiration to pity. So she protected her image, her dignity, and her life's work by refusing to let illness become the headline of her story. On July 9, 2004, Isabel Sanford passed away in Los Angeles at 86 after a brief hospitalization with family close by. Only after her death did many fans realize how much she had been carrying in silence. Her story fits the bittersweet truth of our title. The women who look strongest to us on screen are often fighting their hardest wars out of sight. Isabel left behind more than a beloved character. She left a legacy of firsts, excellence, and a grace that never demanded attention even when her body was quietly struggling. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was a once-in-a-generation miracle, an artist whose voice felt bigger than the room, bigger than the era. From Greatest Love of All to I Will Always Love You, she didn't just sing songs, she lifted people through their own heartbreaks. To the world, Whitney was glamour success and effortless power. She walked red carpets like royalty and hit notes that seemed touched by heaven. For many Americans, especially in the 80s and 90s, she was the definition of unstoppable. But behind that perfect silhouette was a life growing heavier in silence. Whitney struggled for years with addiction and emotional pain that she kept tightly guarded as her public image began to crack. Those close to her later described a woman torn between the pressure of fame and the private wounds. It deepened exhaustion, anxiety, and a body worn down by years of living at the edge. She wasn't the first black superstar to be asked to stay strong no matter the cost. But the scale of her spotlight made her suffering feel even lonelier. The world kept waiting for the next triumphant comeback while Whitney was quietly fighting for breath. On February 11, 2012, she was found unresponsive in a Beverly Hills hotel room, a shocking end that revealed how much she had been carrying out of sight. In the frame of our title, Whitney's story is a reminder that hidden battles aren't always diseases people can see or name easily. Sometimes they're storms of the heart and mind made worse by fame's relentless demand to smile through pain. Her legacy remains towering, but so does the lesson even icons need rescue before it's too late. Aaliyah. Aaliyah was the kind of star who felt destined to grow old with us. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, she moved with effortless, cool, soft voice, sharp style, and a presence that could turn a whisper into a headline. Whether she was singing One in a Million or stepping into film, Aaliyah carried the future on her shoulders, and she made it look light. To fans, she was youth talent and quiet confidence all at once. But as the story goes, even while her career was rising fast, Aaliyah was dealing with health concerns she kept out of view. The transcript describes a painful eye condition that required treatment and may have led to surgery, something she reportedly chose to handle privately, so the focus would stay on her music and momentum. That decision fits a pattern seen in so many women in this series. Protect the dream, protect the image, and never let the public see you falter. In an industry that moves on quickly, silence can feel like survival. Then came the day that froze time. On August 25, 2001, after filming the Rock the Boat video in the Bahamas, Aaliyah boarded a small plane that crashed shortly after takeoff. She was only 22. Her death stunned the world not just because it was sudden, but because it ended a story that felt unfinished. And in the shadow of that loss, the private struggles she never spotlighted became part of her legacy too. A reminder that even the brightest, youngest stars may be carrying battles we never get to see. Florence Ballard. Florence Ballard had the voice that helped build a dynasty. As a founding member of the Supremes, she was there at the very beginning when the group was raw, hungry, and unstoppable. Florence's rich, powerful vocals gave the trio its early soul, and her presence helped define the sound of a generation. But as fame grew, so did the pressure. Behind the glitter of Motown success, Florence's place in the group was shaken, and eventually she was pushed out of the spotlight she helped create. What the public didn't see was how much that fall from grace cost her emotionally and physically. According to her family, Florence had been struggling quietly with serious health problems, including high blood pressure and other complications she kept private. She was dealing with more than heartbreak. Her body was under strain in ways she didn't turn into headlines. In an era when black women were expected to be strong no matter what, Florence carried her health battles the same way many others in this series did, silently away from the cameras while life kept demanding more. In 1976, Florence Ballard was found dead at just 32 years old, a shocking end that felt far too soon for someone who once stood at the center of music history. Only afterward did the fuller truth surface: her hidden illness, her quiet suffering, and the weight she bore alone. Florence's story fits our title because it's a reminder that sometimes the brightest pioneers are also the most vulnerable, and their private pain doesn't become real to the world until it's already too late. Minnie Riperton. Minnie Riperton was pure light in musical form. To hear her sing was to hear someone who could turn joy into sound, especially in Lovin' You, the song that floated into American homes like a lullaby and never left. She had a voice of astonishing range, but what truly made Minnie unforgettable was the tenderness inside it. In the 1970s, she looked like the promise of a long, radiant career, a gifted performer, a devoted mother, and a woman whose star was still rising. Yet behind that sweetness was a storm she faced far too young. Minnie was diagnosed with breast cancer in her 20s, and while she acknowledged the illness to a limited degree, much of her suffering was still carried privately. She kept performing, kept smiling for audiences, and kept protecting the people she loved from the full weight of her pain. Friends and family later described journals and sketches left behind quiet evidence of the fear, hope, and physical struggle she rarely spoke about in public. She didn't want to be remembered as fragile. She wanted to be remembered as Minnie. On July 12, 1979, Minnie Riperton died at only 31. Her passing felt like a song cut off mid-note, beautiful, sudden, and heartbreaking. In the frame of 21 beautiful black actresses who hid their diseases until death, Minnie's story reminds us that even when someone seems to be glowing, they may be fighting something invisible. She left the world too soon, but she also left a legacy of courage, a woman who gave her voice to us while quietly battling for her life right up to the final breath. Madge Sinclair. Madge Sinclair had a regal kind of presence that made audiences sit up straighter without even knowing why. Born in Jamaica, she brought a measured power to every role, whether as the dignified Queen Aeolian in Coming to America, the tender and enduring Belle in Roots, or the warm, steady Sarabi in Disney's The Lion King. On television, she shined for years as Nurse Ernestine Shoup on Trapper John M.D., earning admiration for the calm authority she carried into every scene. She wasn't flashy. She was commanding, the kind of actress whose strength felt natural, not performed. But behind that queenly composure, Madge was quietly fighting a long, exhausting illness. She had been living with leukemia for over a decade, a battle she kept away from the public eye. Friends and colleagues later remembered how she continued working, even as treatments took their toll, choosing dignity over disclosure. In an industry that can be unforgiving about vulnerability, her silence became a shield protecting her career, her family, and the way she wanted to be remembered. Madge Sinclair passed away on December 20th, 1995, at just 57 years old. Only then did many fans learn what she had endured, while still giving them performances filled with grace. Her story fits the heart of our title because it shows how some of the most beautiful, powerful black women in entertainment carried their hardest fights off camera, letting the world see their light, never their pain, until the very end. Barbara McNair. Barbara McNair was the kind of performer who could glide anywhere, television, film, nightclub stages, and make it feel like she belonged there first. In the 1960s and 70s, she was a true crossover star, a singer with velvet control, an actress with effortless poise, and a host whose smile could pull an audience in like a warm front porch on a summer night. She represented a rare kind of black glamour in mainstream America, polished, magnetic, and quietly revolutionary at a time when that image was still being fought for. But behind the elegance, Barbara was carrying a battle that threatened the very instrument that made her famous. In her later years, she was reportedly fighting throat cancer, a cruel disease for someone whose voice was her calling card. Yet she kept that struggle private, continuing to show up in public with the same composure fans had always known. Those close to her said she didn't want illness to rewrite her story. She pushed forward through pain not to impress the world, but because performing was part of how she stayed alive mentally, spiritually, artistically. In 2007, Barbara McNair passed away at 72, and only after her death did many admirers realize what she had been enduring in silence. Her story fits the title because it highlights a familiar truth among these 21 women. The spotlight often showed their sparkle, never their suffering. Barbara left behind more than a career. She left a reminder that some of the most radiant stars are also the best at hiding how much they hurt choosing dignity until the very last curtain call. Ethel Waters. Ethel Waters was a pioneer before America even had language for what she achieved. Rising from poverty at the turn of the 20th century, she became one of the first black women to conquer vaudeville nightclub stages, radio Broadway, and eventually Hollywood. Her voice could be smoky and playful one moment, then cut straight to the bone the next. On screen, she brought a lived-in truth that made audiences lean forward, and in 1949, she earned an Academy Award nomination for Pinky, a rare honor for a black actress in that era. To the public, Ethel was resilience in pearls, unbreakable, accomplished, and always moving. But behind that trailblazing life was a private fight that didn't fit the spotlight's story. In her later years, Waters suffered repeated heart attacks and chronic heart problems, yet she kept the severity of her condition largely to herself. She didn't want to be seen as fragile, and she certainly didn't want illness to be the final label on her legacy. So she endured the chest pains and sleepless nights, quietly continuing to show up to perform when she could and to keep her dignity intact. For a black woman of her generation, silence often wasn't denial. It was a form of control in a world that tried to take it from you. Ethel Waters died in 1977 at the age of 80, and only afterward did the hidden weight of her suffering become clearer to those around her. In the spirit of 21 beautiful black actresses who hid their diseases until death, her story is a stark reminder that greatness and pain can live side by side. She gave the world a blueprint for black excellence in entertainment, but she carried her hardest battle off stage, choosing to let her art speak loudly while her illness stayed in the shadows until the curtain finally fell. As we close this journey through the hidden battles of these extraordinary women, we're reminded that brilliance often shines brightest beside unspoken pain. Their legacies, powerful, resilient, unforgettable, continue to shape our culture long after their final curtain call. But their silence raises a question worth debating. Should icons protect their struggles, or should sharing them help future generations understand the true cost of greatness? Tell us what you think. Join the conversation below, and don't forget to subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence for more powerful stories that honor the past while challenging the present.